George and I always conjure up some fucked up shit in our head, and we come up with these crazy ass scenarios for your guys' entertainment, of course.
Like GSP losing a fight on purpose.
Yeah, just off the wall shit. But we always find it interesting because we find that everybody's going to comment on it and be involved in it. And obviously, you look at the title. The title says Anderson Silva versus GSP versus John Jones. Now,
see, me personally, I would have GSP versus Anderson Silva versus John Jones, because obviously the center stone to any of this happen is Anderson Silva, because he's the only fighter who could go down in weight to fight GSP or go up in weight to fight John Jones. Right. GSP ain't fucking with John Jones. That's never gonna happen. If any of you even contemplate that, just stop.
And this is what George and I decided on. Just from what George saying GSP fighting John Jones is just
not gonna happen.
Tells you that Anderson Silva, and we're going to back our shit up with some facts for once. We feel that Anderson Silva is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And there's going to be people that fucking say, fuck you guys hate Canadian. We think GSP is an awesome fucking fighter, and we like GSP. We like Anderson Silva. We think he's an awesome fighter. We like John Jones. We think he's an awesome fighter. We picked these three fighters because they're the fucking
faces of the UFC right now.
In their classes. But
let's look at this. Let's just break this down. George St-Pierre has fought at one weight class his entire career. It's been a phenomenal career. He's doing a great job.
He's only lost twice.
But it's both at his weight class.
At 170.
GSP also gets to fight in his home country. I know some of you think that might not make a difference, but dude, when you get to sleep at home and you don't have to adjust to altitude or time difference or anything like that, it makes a lot of difference.
It does.
So he's getting ready to have another fight coming up, and shockingly, it's in Canada.
Right.
So, and I'm not knocking him for it, dude. If you can get it done that way, get it done that way.
Right.
Now let's look at who Kevin and I think is the best pound-for-pound fighter. And these are just facts. We're not pulling the shit out of our ass. We're not making any of this up.
Right. Now, Anderson Silva, okay, in his weight class, in the UFC, in the middleweight class, has never lost. In the UFC, he has never lost. In the light heavyweight class, he has never lost. So, in my mind,
another never, he's never fought a UFC event in Brazil.
He's never fought a UFC event in Brazil. It's always in the States or somewhere else. Now, George and I find it funny, and it's not hating on any fighter or anything. How in the fuck, and I'm going to emphasize that, how in the fuck do you make GSP the best pound-for-pound fighter? At one time, the only person we thought that could be in the same talking about with pound-for-pound fighter with Anderson Silva was Fedor. But, and now, obviously, that's not even in the discussion anymore.
So, what we're getting at is, please explain to us what makes George St-Pierre a better pound-for-pound fighter
when he has lost
than Anderson Silva. That would be clear. And we're getting to John Jones, but let's face it, John Jones has had 14 total fights. He's won 13 of them, and let's say it should be 14 because Matt Hamill was starting to hear things at the end of that fight. Was.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That's what we're not. John Jones is on the outskirts of this one. He's in it because we'll get to that. We'll explain why John Jones.
John Jones' brothers still punk him down. You guys know John Jones has two brothers. I think two brothers in the NFL. You know they were fucking him up when he's. I mean, I know they come home and when camp or in between NFC. I know, George, you think I'm gonna say some ignorant shit. Fuck you guys. I gotta finish on with this shit. Okay. I know they come home and they're like this. I know you think you bad as shit, John, doing all that UFC. You can call Dana White right now if you think you Bruce Leroy, and you and I can go. I'll still fuck your ass up. You think they just give him wet willies and fuck him up?
No, because I bet that Bama will be like, I will kick you in the face. They'll be sitting down at dinner, and somehow he'll kick his brother in the head from a seated position. John Jones is a bad man.
Actually, John Jones can kick you anywhere in the country if he's sitting in Topeka, Kansas, because he is like fucking Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four, because that motherfucker's reach is retarded.
I don't know how sports and comic books go together on this, and it's strange because it's the white kid who doesn't like comic books.
Mr. Fantastic.
Yeah. Now let's get back to this. All right, the first thing we're going to take a look at now that we broke down some facts. Let's just say GSP fights Anderson Silva. I don't care what weight they fight at, but let's just say it's a catch weight.
Okay.
All right?
A catch weight.
Let's say it's a catch weight fight.
Okay, let's say they both ended up fighting at 180.
Okay. Now, GSP is 5'10".
Okay.
Anderson Silva is 6'2". So the height advantage obviously goes to Anderson Silva. Now, normally what happens is when a guy has a bigger height advantage, there's a bigger reach advantage.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, He's only given up about an inch of reach.
About an inch and a half in reach. I think a lot of people probably don't realize that GSP has a pretty
long.
decent reach. Yeah, and his reach is only an inch and a half shorter than Anderson Silva. But what I told George, and from wrestling, and anybody who's out there who's wrestled, when you, and Liddell was the perfect example of a guy with long legs that was awesome at sprawling. I think the problem for GSP is he likes to take people down, and that would have to be the way that he would beat Anderson Silva. I don't see there being another way of beating him.
He doesn't want to stand up and strike with Anderson Silva.
He doesn't want to stand up and strike. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, a black belt in judo, and a black belt in taekwondo. And his Muay Thai is just off the chain. If he had to shoot in on Anderson Silva, all of a sudden, those are some long-ass fucking legs that are sprawling.
Yeah.
You got to wrap around those motherfuckers. That is going to be a fucking problem.
With that said, I think George St-Pierre is the most cerebral fighter in the UFC. And what I mean by that is he watches tapes of his opponent and he finds a weakness. And when he finds a weakness or something that he thinks he's stronger than the other guy at, he's like, I'm going to exploit that. Koscheck, he beat to death by punching. Other guys, he's taking them down, let him up and taking them down. I don't see GSP standing with this one, and I think he could get Anderson Silva to the ground because Chael Sonnen did. Now, I understand Anderson had a broken rib, but broken ribs don't keep you from being taken down. Anderson gets taken down, and we've seen him get taken down. So Anderson would want to keep this fight on the feet, and GSP would have to get this to the mat.
And with that being said, the one thing, like you did, and I'm going to kind of reiterate on that, with GSP is he is probably the best athlete in the UFC. Okay, now George is slowly moving John Jones' profile to me, so all of a sudden that can be another topic of discussion. But as of now, a lot of people probably consider him not only the face of the UFC, but the best athlete in the UFC. He is definitely has the best work ethic. I don't think anyone's going to match GSP in work, and he is probably the most methodical fighter there is. He is going to sit back and try to pick you apart, like you said, analyze your game and see what he find a weakness and then capitalize on those weaknesses. With all that being said, I'm not going to candy coat it. I think Anderson Silva will fuck him up.
I do too.
Okay.
Now, if we get the Anderson Silva who's dedicated 100% and has his head in the fight, he will beat GSP. If we get the sometimes disinterested, not really sure if I want to be here, Anderson Silva, he will lose.
Yes. Now,
because GSP does not play.
Now, if GSP is to beat Jake Shields, this is the fight that more than likely we will see. If GSP was to somehow lose to Jake Shields, which Vegas doesn't see that happening, but I still think Jake Shields is a good quality opponent for him. If Jake Shields was to win this fight, then the next super fight that could possibly be talked about would be Anderson Silva meeting John Jones. Now that, my friends.
Now, I think from a MMA fan standpoint, I don't care what GSP does versus Jake Shields. I would much rather see Anderson Silva fight John Jones than GSP fight Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Now, from a money standpoint, and let's see how many seats we can sell and fill the biggest arena, it's going to be GSP versus Anderson Silva.
GSP is by far the most popular athlete in the fucking game.
With that said, now let's look and see what would happen if Anderson Silva decided to go up to 205, which he's done before, and he's won. He's beat Forrest Griffin, and he beat the other guy, Irvin.
The interesting thing that I find about this fight is I think that this is a fight that could light a fire under Anderson Silva's ass. And the reason I say this is because now he can go, I can fight for the 205 belt. And my homeboy Shogun and my homeboy Machida are no longer fucking involved into this, and he just annihilated my buddy. So I can go up there, and now I have a reason to fight, a reason to win. There's no types of things where he's got to feel bad like he's beating a buddy's ass or taking something away from a friend. He can go in there with full intention saying, I want to try to whip John Jones' ass. Now, will that happen?
Now, with that said, let's just look at some more facts. Again, Anderson Silva, 6'2", 77-inch reach.
Yeah.
John Jones, that Bama is 6'4" with an 84-inch reach.
And he hangs out with the Thing, the Invisible Woman, and the Human Torch, because I told you what, and I'll tell you again, he's fucking Mr. Fantastic, because he can stretch across the ring and steal the shit out of you from sitting in this fucking chair. All he needs is the fucking 4 in his chest, George.
With that said, I don't think anyone else is gonna doubt John Jones' strength, because he just basically did whatever he would. Shogun was touted as having all this jiu-jitsu. He left that back in the locker room. That, and I think he was overwhelmed by John Jones' power, and I think John Jones would still have to worry about Anderson Silva precision and striking.
That's the thing. I think if it went on the ground, that Jones' strength would do just like Chael Sonnen did with Silva. I think he could hold him, and he's so wiry and so lengthy, and he could start throwing down those elbows, and it would probably wear Silva, and he would end up. But I think if it stays up, and people talk about John Jones' elbows and how good of a striker is, but I'm gonna tell you what, Anderson Silva is such a fucking good counter striker. If you create an opening, which you do every time you throw a punch, he will capitalize on it. And if John Bones Jones starts throwing those elbows, he will come around and he'll get something right in his face. Bones has admitted how accurate he is at all his strikes.
Accurate.
That brother is accurate.
Now,
and
here's what I would. If we've watched Anderson Silva's last couple fights, when Chael Sonnen came out and pressed him, he didn't have time to do what he does. And what that is Anderson comes out, he starts doing this, he starts moving, and he's feinting. He's trying to act like he's throwing punches to see how you're going to react. And once he sees, I feinted this way, okay, he keeps doing that. He's like, all right, now it's time to throw.
Right.
And that's what Anderson Silva did versus Vitor Belfort.
Right.
He just waited, moved, trying to see an opening, found an opening, and kicked that dude and put him to sleep.
Now, I think is too is you also got to look at the camps. Like when they sit back, the things that John Jones does, Greg Jackson's going to be like this. You can't do this against Anderson Silva.
That spinning back elbow crap you did against Shogun?
He's going to tell him that stuff. Like, you know how he started out the fight with Shogun? He came out and he did that flying knee. That shit, he could end up being just like Arlovsky did against Fedor. Because now you're talking about somebody who's a technician. And we saw when Fedor fought Arlovsky, he was winning the fight, he came out and did some unorthodox shit, and he was fucking snoring.
Dude, if John Jones came running across the ring and tried to throw a flying knee at Anderson, I could literally see him sidestepping and popping him in the mouth.
Yeah, because he's that quick. I mean, and this is the thing. You got to realize, Anderson Silva fought a guy who, in stature, not lean and as quick, but Forrest Griffin was 6'4". He's a big guy, and you saw. I mean, obviously he's not as quick as John Jones. I mean, we're talking about a completely different athlete, but you're still talking about the size and the reach and the leg, the ability to kick, leg check stuff. It just didn't work.
So today, March whatever it is.
That'd be the 23rd.
I think Anderson Silva stands the best chance at GSP. Little to no shot at beating Anderson Silva, in my opinion. And I'm sure a lot of you Canadian people out there think, I know, dude, I'm just being honest. On paper, he'd have to try to take him down. Can he take him down? If anyone can do it, it can be GSP, because fuck, Chael Sonnen did it.
Yeah.
So if GSP gets Anderson Silva to the ground, he has to ground and pound him.
Yeah.
Because GSP can't afford to go into the next round and stand up.
No.
He has to push to end this fight. And then GSP's last 8 fights, he's...
Well, yeah. Ever since he got KO'd by Serra, he's been a little bit more conservative. I mean, he's had 8 fights. He's finished 3. Now, he annihilated BJ Penn, and I'm a BJ Penn fan. He really finished. But he has been a little bit more on the cautious side,
So GSP stands a chance, but in my opinion, Anderson Silva beats him.
Sometimes I want you guys. I want people to look at this because you make your comments and talk about this shit and what you think. But I think if I was to ask most people out there, who do you think would win between Anderson Silva and John Jones? Most people would sit back and think about it and go, that's a good fight, okay? But then, if you, in the same breath, were to ask people, who do you think would win between GSP and John Jones, they would probably say John Jones. They probably wouldn't hesitate. They would say it's such a huge size difference. So you got to think about the man in the middle, okay? This guy, you're looking at him being a competitive fight against John Jones, but then you're looking at a potential matchup with GSP, and you're saying GSP wouldn't probably stand a chance against John Jones. And they're similar built fighters. John Jones and Anderson Silva are very similar in size, the way they fight, and everything. So we're just curious to see how it's going to unravel. We're really curious as hell to see about what people are going to have to fucking say about this.
Exactly. So let us know what you think.
Yes, we're out. Maybe. Maybe not.